And we're back now with the breaking news out of Chicago, Illinois, where protesters are marching in and around downtown Chicago in the wake of murder charges being brought, first-degree murder charges being brought against a police officer who shot and killed a 17-year-old black man 1 year ago. Dana Loesch, your thoughts on whether this does speak to a greater societal issue?
I do think that we have a greater societal issue, but a couple of quick points here, Megan. First off, and this is not to excuse the actions of Officer Van Dyke. I very much want to hear the justification and his reasoning for emptying his entire magazine after the threat had been neutralized. But he was responding to a call. Someone had called in a threat, and that individual was a young man who was on PCP and who was waving around a knife in the middle of the street. I think that it is disingenuous to ignore that fact. Secondly, whenever anyone includes Ferguson, St. Louis is my hometown. Ferguson is the result of someone choosing to act in a criminal manner. You had a young man named Mike Brown who chose to strong-arm rob on camera a store. Then, according to numerous forensic reports, Megan, he went after a cop's gun. He had gun residue on his hands. When you try to go after a cop with his own gun after strong-arm robbing a store, you could be met with lethal force.
Cop was
that
exonerated.
Is the hazard of making
cop was
choice.
Exonerated,
yes.
and that specific
that
officer should not be included in the stats.
Right.
Although Ferguson itself had issues with cops. Hold on, Commissioner, because I want to get Commissioner Carrick in. You know, Commissioner, so often when we see an event like this, we see many folks rush to condemn police at large.
You know what, Megan? I think you have to keep it in context. I know there's a lot of people that want a broad brush. The reality is cops make 20 million arrests a year, 20 million about throughout the United States. There's a lot of deadly physical force. There's a lot of things that happen in those arrests, physical confrontations. We take 5, 10 of these events a year, and then we want to classify the entire police nation, police service as, you know, racist and
I just want to jump in. Just want to jump in as we're seeing an extraordinary moment. Look what's happening here.
Well, listen, you're going to have guys like this, you know, they want to instigate, they want to create a...
What is he instigating, Bernie? I'm sorry, I've got to interrupt.
Richard, look at him. This is a cop out there accused of doing nothing wrong, trying to keep the peace.
This guy is having a silent protest with his police officer.
He gets right in his face and stares him down. This cop hasn't done anything wrong.
That is his First Amendment right, Megan. And you, out of all people, Megan, believe it's protected. This is his First Amendment right. I don't understand.
You think that's fine? You have no problem with this?
This is his First Amendment right. The biggest problem here
is what his constitutional rights are. It's a question of what's appropriate.
And I see nothing wrong with this. I think what is inappropriate is this prosecutor took 13 months to prosecute this individual when this police officer had 18 different complaints against him from citizens of Chicago.
That's
correct, and no one here, as far as I can tell, is defending that officer. The question is whether it speaks to a greater narrative, as some allege, and this moment here. Let me bring in Mark and Arthur. Mark, I want to ask you whether this prosecutor, because now many of these protesters want her kicked off, saying 13 months is too long.
Well, it's one or the other. Either she needed to wait that long because there are facts and circumstances that we're unaware of, and I find it hard to believe based upon that video, or she really did drag her feet. The question is why? I find it disturbing, Megan.
Arthur, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, the bottom line is the fact that he was on PCP is irrelevant. Unless the police officer knew he was on PCP, then it would be relevant. But there's no evidence that he knew that he was on PCP, number one. Number two, he wasn't, I don't think there was a call that he was a threat. I think it was a call that he was slashing tires and stealing from a car. So there's no excuse from that. And Megan, here's the bottom line. If that was a civilian that executed a police officer on video the way we saw it, and it was 13 months before an indictment came down, that prosecutor would be forced to resign.
Commissioner Carrick, I want to go back to you on what we're seeing here on screen.
Listen, you're seeing silent protests, you know, and I agree with Gary McCarthy said what he said earlier, the superintendent there. You know, they have a right to protest. They have a right to peacefully protest as long as it doesn't get out of hand. You know, then that's fine. They don't have a right to commit criminal conduct.
How does the cop do his job? I mean, what is this like for a police officer?
Well, listen, you know, you're going to have this kind of stuff. You know, people want to make a name for themselves. They want to look good on camera. They want to, you know, whatever.
Oh, stop it,
Richard. I understand. Richard, I understand the outrage. I get that. Everybody understands as we see that tape. I don't know what we just saw. Your thoughts?
I mean, here's the thing, Megan. This outrage, this is not the first time that the African-American community is dealing with this. This is countless times, over and over again. These young people are angry because their lives are literally in question on the streets of Chicago.
But Richard, in Chicago, the major problem is African Americans killing other African Americans.
The point is that their lives are in question. This police officer put 16 bullets into this young man for absolutely no reason. Absolutely no reason.
That is certainly how the tape looks, but the question is whether or why we don't see these kinds of protests when we see the crime statistics that we see in inner city Chicago with black on black crime, Richard.
Listen, I think that we're mixing apples and oranges here. We could talk about black on black crime and how we solve black on black crime, but what's in question today is the people that put their hands on the Bible and swear to protect and serve the community are harming the community, and that is a problem. And it's not a Republican problem. It's not a Democratic problem. It's not a black problem. It's not a white problem. It's an American problem.
I would disagree slightly with the party affiliation because
hold on one second, Dana, because I want to go back to Mike, who's in the middle of
to any party.
Stand by. Let's see what's happening on the ground with Mike Tobin. Mike.
They ready to do some shit.
Mike, can you hear me? Okay, he can't hear me, but he's...
sir, and it doesn't include me.
We're trying to hear some of the sound from the protesters there and get their message on TV. Here is specifically what they say. As we told the viewers earlier, one of the things they're ticked off about is the delay in bringing this case. Now, the police, the city, I should say, already agreed to a $5 million settlement with McDonald's family even before they filed a lawsuit. So they have no problem acknowledging liability in the case. But, Arthur, that's not enough. And there's a question about whether this case is going to be can be tried in Chicago, given the release of this video, which you can bet the defense attorney is going to argue was too inflammatory.
And I have no idea at this point, with the little that we know, what a defense would be here, because I think, Megan, you said 6 seconds. He's out of the car for 6 seconds. Unless they're going to hear a radio run. That's what he knows from what he's been told in the radio. Unless there's something there that he may have had a gun on him, but there's not that imminent threat that he would need to justify his actions.
Stand by, Arthur, because I want to go to Mike now. Mike?
All right, coming us. Got it. Oh, hi, Megan. All right, we're keeping an eye on the situation here. And you see you've got some of the people with some of the angry talk. All right, so there's a little bit adult language there in what's going on. And some people are trying to block our shot. And you can see we've got a line of police officers here. And you got the demonstrators. And that's just kind of as it's going. The crowd, I can't really give you a good idea for how much the crowd has grown throughout the evening, but it's not a rowdy crowd. And again, the police have a soft profile right now. They don't have the riot gear out here. Mostly bike cops and cops in a line right now with a soft profile, trying to handle it as gently as they can.
And the protesters,
Megan?
Mike, I mean, from what we've seen, seem to be obeying the law, but you tell us.
Largely obeying the law. I mean, the only thing they're doing is blocking some intersections and walking down the street. I haven't seen anything that I could really call a rowdy protest other than a lot of chanting. Megan?
And you can understand the message tonight, but Dana Lash, the question is whether too many young black men are being shot by cops unjustifiably, and B, too many cops are being painted with the same brush thanks to the bad cops who engage in those acts.
And we've had a lot of cops shot, too, Megan. We can't forget that either. There's been a rash of murders of police officers. But I do absolutely believe, I mean, again, St. Louis is my hometown, and I grew up noticing the distrust between the black community and the police department there. And I've also seen some good and some bad leaders come in. And we've seen some elected officials that didn't have the police's back when they needed to. And we've also seen some that have really stepped up. But there has to be there has to be something to bridge that gap in that community. And you can't, and for all of the individuals who have said, you know what, you need more black officers, you need more people to step up. I think that would be fantastic, but it's hard to recruit, Megan, when you see them demonized so much nationally.
Yeah, and at a time when, you know, the good cops out there, we need them. We need them badly. Stand by. We'll be right back.